Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of my recipe challenge where I have, let me grab it, this recipe book that I picked up in a charity shop, and we're filling it out with lots of recipes. Some of them I have here, I pulled out of magazines and stuff. So if you're new here, my channel is mostly cooking and gardening, and I'm gluten-free and dairy-free, so I do adapt these recipes for that. But this week's episode is a little bit different because instead I'm doing my favorite gluten-free and dairy-free recipes that I haven't written down yet, that I have had before, except one which is a bit of an experiment, and that is the pizza dough Danish, and it's delicious. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll link the recipes below if I have a link for them, and if not, you'll see how I make them in the video anyway. And I hope you enjoy. Thank you for being here. So the first meal we're making is a super easy meal to make in the week time if you're kind of in a rush, or you've not picked up anything and you've just kind of got some stuff left in your fridge too. You might have these kind of bits. So it's just nachos. So basically I just have some tortilla chips here. I checked that they were gluten free, so just check them before. I'm just cutting up some Madison sausage, some fajita chicken. I cooked these beans through before I added them and rinsed them, and then just topping with some salsa, a jar of salsa, and we're just going to put that in the oven for about 15 minutes at 180 degrees Celsius for a fan oven, I think, or 200-ish, and take them out when they're golden. I cut up some onion to top. We have some guacamole, some sriracha. I love this sriracha, it's delicious. Some jalapenos, and I think I've got some extra beans there on the side. And you could also use sour cream if you can have dairy. And obviously there's no cheese on these nachos, but truly it doesn't need it. They taste completely delicious, and it's a great, easy, gluten-free meal and dairy-free meal. And just check the ingredients on the package you buy, but everything should be gluten-free and super, super tasty. So I highly recommend. And that's how much I ate. The next meal we're making is cabbage steaks. So that may sound weird and strange, but I swear they are delicious. I love cabbage, but my boyfriend, who's not as into eating so much veg, also loves it. So you just slice up a white or green cabbage about 1 inch thick. Add some spices. I've got some paprika, Italian seasoning, and salt in the bowl. To that, I'm just going to add about a tablespoon of white wine. That's completely optional, but an option if you're into white wine. And about a tablespoon or so of oil. And then I'll just mix that through and put a little bit on each of the cabbage steaks. So we do add some bacon to it as well, but if you want to keep it vegetarian, then you definitely could, and not add any bacon. But what I'm going to do is top them and put them in the oven for about 10 minutes at about 200 degrees, 220 even degrees Celsius, and then you just top off with some bacon and put in for an extra 25 minutes. And these are how it came out. I forgot to take a video before I started eating, but you can see that it turns out delicious. The next thing we're making is the pizza. Sorry about the washing machine beeping in the background. These normal pizza and also pizza Danishes, which I've made as like a pizza dough where you have custard on top and some fruit. It's delicious. So the first thing I'm doing is mixing this yeast in a bowl. I'm 1.5 times in my recipe, and I did make a mistake at one point, but I will just show you the piece of paper that has all the instructions on it. So that'll come up in a minute, but now I'm just whisking some blonde psyllium husk. I do think I have a video entirely on making pizza, so if you're looking for a gluten-free pizza recipe, I love this pizza recipe. And you can go to that video, but I'm about to put it on the screen anyway, what I did on this day. So I'm just whisking out that psyllium husk. Pause there if you want the recipe. There are some crossings out and things where I went wrong because my maths is interesting at times, but that is the recipe I used. And then I'm going to add some flour. So I'm using the gluten-free Dove's Farm bread flour and the xanthan gum. Again, just make sure you check all your packets to check the ingredients are gluten-free before you use them, because you'll be surprised how quickly ingredients can change on things and you not realise. I've made that mistake before. So now I'm just using the spoon that I whisked out the yeast with just to mix it through with the flour. And then to that, we're going to add our oil and our psyllium husk that we mixed up previously as well. This is a super easy recipe for gluten-free pizza. And then the only thing I will say is I don't add all the liquid at once in terms of the water. I just slowly add that in until it's the right consistency. So here I am kneading the dough. That's about the consistency you want. And I've made enough here for, this was 3 pizzas worth and 4 of these dessert treats. And I 1.5 times my recipe, so that's one that you saw on the sheet. So cover in oil and let rise for about an hour to 2 hours. Here you can see it's about doubled in size. It's actually kind of hard to tell, but it really has doubled in about size. And then you're ready to make pizza with it. And you should hear it bubbling from the yeast. So this is me making the pizza desserts. I made these first because the custard needs to set before you can eat them. So I covered my hands with oil just to make it easier to shape it. And then I'm just taking about a handful. I didn't measure it, just about a hand sized full of dough, and then I'm just making a dimple in the center. Initially I thought it would be easier to use a spoon, but in the end it turned out much easier just to use my fingers to shape the pizza so that there's a really thick crust on the outside and a thin well on the inside to pour the custard into. So my inspiration for this was just like a normal pastry Danish, but with pizza dough instead, because I knew I would have leftover pizza dough, and that's just the dessert I was craving. If you were just making it these treats and not an actual pizza as well, then you could sweeten the dough as well. But I think it's sweet enough with icing sugar topped. So at this point, I'm pretty used to shaping these because it's the 4th one and I made 4 of these. And I just thought this would be a fun experiment, and they actually turned out pretty delicious. So if you're looking for an easier gluten-free dessert, this could be an option, especially on a day that you're already maybe wanting to make pizza. I love homemade pizza. It's just so much better than the shop bought stuff. Especially gluten-free pizza and dairy-free pizza. So there you can see we've got a thick crust on the outside like a barrier, thin middle area to weld the custard into, and overall I'd say about 3 inches wide, I don't know, 3.5 inches wide. A very mini pizza. And then the rest of the dough I'm just going to cover and we'll make our actual pizza with it. So I'm checking these in the oven at, I think, 180 degrees Celsius for 5 minutes, or maybe 200 actually, for 5 minutes. In the meantime, I'm mixing up 1 egg with about a teaspoon of milk, almond milk, and you could also add a teaspoon of sugar to this, and that we will brush the tops of our pizza with when we add the custard. So after they come out, after about 5 minutes, you can see that they've kind of crisped up a bit on the bottom, so the custard won't go straight through them. And I'm just using this Outpro dairy-free custard to fill the centers with. You could definitely make a homemade custard. I think that would be delicious, but I just wanted these to be super easy and something that doesn't take up a ton of time. So I just fill these until they look good. I do overfill one of them, but I think that's the one I overfilled. But it's not really a big deal. And then once we've filled them, I'm just going to brush the edges with the mixture that we made. I'm very, very indecisive about when they're full. Because you want them to be pretty full, but you don't want to obviously overfill them. So here I'm just using my pastry brush. I'm brushing them. And this will make them nice and golden when they come out of the oven. So they're going back in the oven for 12 minutes, and this is them coming out. So they've got kind of brown areas where they've cooked nicely. The pastry, or the dough should I say, is nice and golden. And you need to let these set, I would say, for at least half an hour, so that they can cool up and firm up. I mean, you could eat them like that, but the custard would just go flying everywhere and be really hot. So let them set. In the meantime, I'm cutting up my toppings, my pizza. I'm doing different toppings than I've ever had before, and I'm trying peach on my pizza with some prosciutto. And there's some of the other meats that my boyfriend's going to have, and I'm also having some red onion. And usually I use tomato puree on my pizza, but this time I'm actually trying out some passata and mixing that with some Italian herb seasoning. So this is it before going in the oven, and this is it coming out the oven. I know the dairy-free cheese does not make it look as good as it does when there's normal cheese, but I swear it does taste delicious. And this is our dessert pizzas once they're topped with some icing sugar and a raspberry. Our pizza danishes, as I'm calling them. And I'll show you them once I bite into them too, how cute they look. They were fantastic, by the way. A bit like a donut, I guess, with the oil. And lastly, we're making chicken Cajun orzo, which again is a new recipe for me. And it's slightly inspired by a recipe I found online. But that didn't come with measures for the ingredients. So I will try and find that again if I can and link that below. But I will also show you the recipe that I write down at the end of the video for this as well. So some gluten-free chicken. I mean, chicken's usually gluten-free. I have some gluten-free orzo to add to this. And I'm just going to cook up that chicken, add some salt, add some Cajun seasoning that I have, and get that cooked through initially. And this is a one-pot meal, I would say, and that's super fun because it's just nice to only be doing things in one pot. Although I will say it is a meal you kind of have to stand over and watch because you need the pasta not to get stuck to the bottom of the pan. Here I'm just checking the ingredients on the Cajun seasoning before I use it. I'm very meticulous at checking ingredients because I've been caught out too many times with not checking ingredients. But I still make mistakes, so it's just one of those things. And this is some smoked paprika as well. I got this smoked paprika in DK Maxx and it's pretty good. I'm just going to cook that through. And then we'll add the rest of the ingredients. So I'm also cutting up, dicing up an onion. I'm going to mince up the garlic. Cut up those bell peppers and dice them. So you can see my chicken's cooked through. Add in the onions. This recipe took longer than I thought it would cook. I would say it probably took about 40 minutes total. And I expected it to take like 25. But it could maybe get quicker with practice. I'm not sure. I'm just adding the garlic. And here I've got the bell peppers mixed in. And it smells so delicious with the Cajun seasoning. So to that I'm just going to add, I added about like 2/3 of the pack orzo, but next time I would just add the whole pack of orzo. I wasn't sure how much it would fill up when it was cooking because I hadn't used it before. But next time I would just do the full 500 grams of the pack of orzo. Then I'm going to add about 100 ml of some white wine. You don't have to do that, but I had some, so I figured I would use it up. And the alcohol will cook off anyway. Then I'm adding 1 chicken stock cube. Next time I would do 2 just because I'd be doubling the amount of orzo. And then I'm topping it up with some water, making sure that that chicken stock cube gets mixed in. And I would have used cream for this recipe. I would have used the Emilia dairy-free cream, but I unfortunately didn't realise that I didn't have any, so I used just some milk instead. But usually I would have used a whole carton of that cream and then kept topping it with water until it is cooked. I'm saying usually this is the only time I've ever cooked it, but that's what I would do in future. But using the milk turned out just fine. And basically you just want to cook it until the orzo's cooked and the water's down. So I'm adding some spinach. I keep topping it up with water, making sure nothing sticks to the bottom of the pan. And I cook it until the orzo is cooked. I did for this meal actually forget to get a finished shot of how it turned out, but it turned out really delicious and everyone that had it adored it. And if you can eat cheese, I would definitely top it with some parmesan. I think that would be delicious. So I added a bit more milk, and here it is almost finished. And I did cook it down until it was completely cooked through and thickened up, but like I said, I forgot to get a video of that, but it was completely delicious. It's basically the same as cooking risotto, really, and if you're much of a risotto cooker, but it's not too difficult. You just do have to keep a watch over it. But definitely a great gluten-free and dairy-free meal that's full of healthiness and lots of different nutrients, and you can add as much Cajun seasoning as you want. If you want more spice, you could add more chili. So, all of these recipes, I would definitely say are right downable into this recipe book. Some of them, like I say, I've had before. Some of them are completely new to me. But I just went through and wrote all of these ones down. You can see the different contents here. And I just switched to the right page and write them down. I will also show you a video of those written down at the end of this video in case you want to have a go at the recipes and want the recipes. I'll put them at the end of this video. I really enjoyed making all of those meals, and I hope you enjoyed kind of watching and seeing how they turned out. If you're looking for other gluten-free meals and dairy-free meals, definitely check out my page. But also if you're just looking for fun meals, I have lots of different things that, even though they are gluten-free, you could have normal. Or you could just eat them gluten-free. So I really appreciate you for being here. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!